Yo, what's up everyone? This is Kaizouwar here. So BlazBlue hasn't really had any story updates since 2022, which was the end of BlazBlue Alternative Dark War. And I'm sitting here thinking, damn, I kind of miss BlazBlue Alternative Dark War. It's kind of funny thinking about it, considering the fact that this game was very, very negatively seen. You know, people did not want a mobile gacha game about BlazBlue, and it was during a time where the only game that was really being talked about and being shown off and being updated was BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle, an already controversial game. And I can understand that. People didn't want to play BlazBlue Alternative Dark War. I totally understand that. I did, because obviously I love BlazBlue. I wanted more lore, and I wanted it so bad that I actually pre-registered for it. Like, I wanted that, you know what I mean? So, it's just kind of sad seeing it gone now, because, like, we're not going to get any updates for these characters. We're not going to get any updates for like new villains. We're not going to get any new alter and other dark forms of these characters. We're not going to get any more lore content for Mori because he's not with the company anymore. And it just feels like we're at an end of an era for BlazBlue where like that was that. Like that's it. Now I'm not going to sit here and say BlazBlue is like hyper ultra mega dead. Like Arc System Works can still do something with BlazBlue, but it just won't be exactly the same. And I think that's what I really liked about the idea of Alternative Dark War. The problem about Alternative Dark War is that like it had 4 years of development. It was announced in 2017 and didn't even come out until 2021, and then died within 11 months until 2022. From February of 2021 to January of 2022, it didn't even make it that far, right? Because it just wasn't getting any money. It wasn't making any returns. And like BlazBlue was just not that big of a franchise. It's not. It really isn't. I don't know how big BlazBlue is in Japan, but like, you know, not everyone's gonna know what BlazBlue is, right? And I feel like mobile games have to have, if they're really unknown names, they have to have a really big pull to get people in there. And just BlazBlue just didn't have that incentive, right? You see stuff like Fate, right? Fate was all like popular, but it wasn't like, it didn't get like huge until Grand Order came out, because it just had something people liked about Grand Order and got more people into the Fate franchise to keep going with that, right? Stuff like, you know, new IPs like Genshin and Arknights and like whatever else, right? They had something that appealed to people, and now look at them. They're like big mobile games and gacha games and shit. And they got people coming in constantly and making those companies huge amounts of money, fat stacks. But BlazBlue just out the gate, Alternative Dark War just didn't have anything. It didn't have anything to pull people in. It was basically BlazBlue for people who wanted more BlazBlue. And that's not a lot of people, because when people play BlazBlue, they kind of just really want to get into the fighting game aspect. They really want to play the fighting game part, right? A lot of BlazBlue fans aren't in it for the story. And I can understand that. And that's pretty much what Alternative Dark War was. Just the only reason to even play Alternative Dark War was for the story and to pull some wacky characters, you know what I mean? And considering it didn't last long enough to get anywhere, we couldn't have gotten to a point where we couldn't even see this, you know, the wackier characters, like more alternate forms of themselves, stuff like that, you know, like more swimsuit variants. The story exploded. We didn't get to that point. BlazBlue Alternative Dark War stopped so prematurely that we don't even know what it could have been like. So, yeah. BlazBlue Alternative Dark War was a mobile gacha game. People already have a hugely negative view on that, including myself. I don't F with mobile gacha games. The only one I really put time and investment into is in Bleach Brave Souls. And that's because it's Bleach. I love Bleach to death. And on top of that, like, Bleach just has cool characters. It has cool, like, alternate designs, cool ass alternate forms, and the characters play differently and all that shit. They have really cool things that make me want to play Bleach Brave Souls, right? And that's why I continue to play it to this day. And the fact that it lasts 10 years is actually pretty insane, right? But BlazBlue Alternative Dark War just didn't have that pull for it. It just didn't. It spent too long to cook and didn't even like come out that good in the end anyway. Like, don't even get me started the fact that the game crashed so damn often. It had so many, you know, bugs and crashes. I actually posted a lot of, well, not even really a lot. I posted quite a few bugs on my Twitter account where like some of the enemies just wouldn't even spawn in, and then like you try to fight those enemies, the game would just crash on you again. Like every few minutes, the game crashing is not good. Now, granted, it could have been my phone or whatever. I didn't really hear nobody else complain about maintenance and stuff like that, but Alternative Dark War went on maintenance a lot. And my game, and the least when I played it, crashed a lot. So I didn't really get to make it too far into it. It constantly crashed. It constantly restarted my data, and I hated it, right? I hated doing that because I couldn't even play the game much. And on top of that, the gameplay, I'm just going to tell you this right there. I know a lot of people are going to argue against this, but Alternative Dark War is just Fate Grand Order. But, like, it doesn't have what Fate Grand Order did to pull you in. Like, it just did it, right? It didn't get to the point where it could have pulled you in like Fate Grand Order did. And, you know, Mori is a massive Fate fan. I think everyone and their mother knows that right now. Everyone who's into BlazBlue and who's into Fate know the connection between BlazBlue and Fate. They already know Mori's a gigantic fan. But the problem I think about BlazBlue Alternative Dark War is that it laid it on way too thick with the Fate, like, inspirations. And so you can kind of look at that, right? From the offset, you can kind of look at it and think, wait, I could be playing Fate Grand Order. Don't play Fate Grand Order. That game is a hot mess. You know, story's great. Characters are cool as hell. Don't play that game. Absolute nonsense. Do not play Fate Grand Order. If you're already playing it, you're too far gone. If you want to play it, don't play it. Trust me. It will destroy your life. It destroyed mine because I didn't get the pull from my Artorial Lancer. You know what? I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into that. Point is, Alternative Dark War just felt a little bit too much like Fate Grand Order, right? And there's nothing wrong with inspirations. You know, a lot of new ideas, new cool games get born out of inspiration. But, like, I feel like Mori could have done something a little bit more unique with this. A little bit more unique. Because, like, the game is already hard to approach as is. And at the end of the day, you needed to know about BlazBlue to enjoy Alternative Dark War. And at the end of the day, a lot of people didn't because Alternative Dark War wasn't even good. That's what Dark War feels like to me. That's what Alternative Dark War feels like to me. You just needed to know. You just needed to know. And if you didn't know, you're not going to really enjoy it. And even then, it wasn't that good anyway. And that's the sad part. And I'm just bummed out. Because I really like getting the new story revelations in Alternative Dark War. I really did like learning about the new characters, like new villains. We had like Babel, like new Prime Fields. We're not going to know about them, man. We had like characters coming, you know, like characters who died in the previous BlazBlue games. Well, Central Fiction, like I wouldn't say previous BlazBlue games, just more like Central Fiction. They had to come back as Chrono Phantasma, and you can use them as units in the game. They have new forms, new costumes, stuff like that, new story content to them. Rodna was going to come back, like stuff like that. It's just we're not going to have that anymore because the game just didn't make it anywhere, and it makes it even worse that more is just gone. Now, look, I'm gonna say this. My personal opinion, and I don't know if anyone else feels the same. The combination of Cross-Type Battle's reception combined with the failure of Alternative Dark War is the reason Mori left. Now, you could say that, now personally for me, and you could say, and I feel like you could say this, that no, you're wrong. You're wrong, Kaizou. That Mori just left on his own terms. But I just don't think that. I do believe that's my personal opinion. And I could easily be wrong, duh. But my personal opinion is that like just they just let him go because like they just lost so much money. Like again, like it costs so much money to make these games. You could say like okay, well, Alternative Dark War, you know, is a mobile gacha game, but you gotta put a lot of money into that just to release it for free at that. You gotta put a lot of money and resources. And again, this game was at a 4-year dev cycle. God don't know how much money was put into that. You know, yeah, get voice actors in. You all these artists in here. You know, make the actual goddamn game and then release it for free and bank on the success that people will play it. And it just didn't. And there's also like freaking Cross-Tag Battle. Now I don't know how well Cross-Tag Battle was like received in total. You know, like with a combination of 2.0 coming out, right? But considering that they only made it 2 seasons and stopped, you know, that says a lot right there. A lot of fighting games get like, you know, 2, 3, 4, you know, they go pretty a while. But you can already tell the game isn't doing so hot when it either gets 1 or 2 seasons and just stops right there. Because Cross-Tag Battle, you know, could have went further considering the fact that a lot of stuff they were reusing, which is reused character sprites. Yeah, they had to rework them to work in that frame to play in the game. So it's not like they could just reuse them like that. They had to redraw the Under Night sprites to fit. They had to make the new Ruby characters. They had to actually make the gameplay different, so that requires some time to work as well. They had to do that, right? So like, it's not like just plopping a character sprite in there and just go. You know, it doesn't work that way. So I don't think Cross Tag Battle did too hot on what Arc System's work wanted to do. And I guess and doubly say that for Dark War. Like, it was a massive risk to do that, and it just didn't pay off. And that's why they probably just let Mori go. You know? It bums me out thinking about it, because Alternate Dark War could have been something. But, like, it's just like the combination of the long dev cycle, it's a mobile gacha game. It just didn't have enough to pull people into it. The game was not going to succeed. And I think that's the sad part about it. Yo, what's up everyone? This is Editing Kaizou here. I wanted to talk about some things I liked about Alternative Dark War before I completely end this video, because I felt like I was a little bit too negative, and there was a bunch of things I forgot to actually talk about during the making of the video. So let's talk about them now. So the one thing I did like about Dark War was that we had BlazBlue characters from like all over the series, all over the franchise into this one game. We had BlazBlue Blood Experience characters, we had characters from Remix / Variable Heart, and we even had characters from X-Blaze as well as music from X-Blaze, which I really like. I like that it's gone now, but I like that we had a product that brought all these characters together in one space. Now, it sucks because there's characters like Akira from X-Blaze who didn't make it in. He was going to be a playable character because they found his name in the data mining, but he didn't make it as a playable character, so obviously more X-Blaze and, you know, any other characters from around the BlazBlue franchise would have made it into Dark War, which I would have loved to see more of. We have a bunch already, but I would have loved to see more of them, because I think that would be a great idea. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the Granblue Fantasy collab. Now, obviously mobile games are no stranger to collabs. BlazBlue having a collab is not outside the realm of possibility. I mean, Cross Tag Battle exists, and that's just one giant collab game. So I wasn't shocked to see that something was able to collab with Dark War, but I didn't expect it to be Granblue, but it made sense. Because Arc System Works developed Granblue Fantasy Versus. They already have a relationship with Cygames, and I feel like Cygames pretty much, you know, really wouldn't care if they let Arc System Works use their characters. It just only seemed fitting, right? But one thing that sucks is that we didn't get more collabs. I would have loved to see more collabs from different series. You know, if Dark War was alive long enough to get said collabs, right? So, you know, they obviously Arc System Works has developed Persona 4 Arena. So, you know, they have a relationship with Atlas at the very least. Cross Tag Battle exists, so, you know, there's French bread if somehow any Undernight characters were to be able to get into Dark War. There's also Ruby. You know, Ruby's not with Rooster Teeth anymore, it's with Viz Media, but I don't think it really would have mattered all too much. You know, Senran Kagura, there's Arcana Heart. Just, you know, the well is very huge for possibilities for crossovers. I feel like Arc System is no stranger to it, so, you know, it would have been great to see more collabs. Granblue made sense, even though I make fun of the collab a lot, because I say this a lot, where I feel like the collab only existed to be a last-ditch attempt to save the game, because Granblue's incredibly popular in Japan. It would only make sense for a new, up-and-coming mobile game to collab with one of the biggest in Japan. It just didn't work out too well, which is a disappointment, but it is what it is. Another thing I completely forgot to mention was Jusan and White Justice. Now, Jusan is what happened to New after the events of BlazBlue Central Fiction, and then there's Izuyoi, who was at the end of Central Fiction, who later became known as White Justice when she became a unit in the game. And that's crazy to me to see these characters actually as like fully playable units with their own story, because that was some of the biggest mysteries of what was going to happen after Central Fiction. People wondered what was going to happen with, you know, New, was she's going to stay in a coma, well, not really a coma, but she will stay comatose like forever, which she's going to stay like a vegetable in a bed forever. What's this strange new Izuyoi hiding herself, and why does she have Hakumen's sword? And now we have answers for that. And I really like this because Jusan alone existing and how she carries herself and her story, going, like, you know, trying to be her own person after being constantly used as a tool the entire BlazBlue series, it's really refreshing, because it not only gives this character a new lease on life, but it also makes her do cool new things that she was never able to do before. And I really, really like that. Like, just her alone completely changed my opinion on New 13, from hating the character to really loving her now that she's like this. And Izayoi, who this version of Izayoi, who later became White Justice, was also super interesting because this is a character who we didn't really see much of yet, who's this basically this more justice obsessed Tsubaki, who's basically a female Hakumen who had transcended humanity in order to accomplish her goals. And that's insane, right? These two characters automatically just make my opinion on the originals better. Like, I didn't really like Tsubaki or Nu, but these two felt like a celebration tour for me. Like, they are so much cooler than the originals. I'm just gonna say that, being honest. The problem is that, you know, Alternative Dark War's gone, so we would have never seen what was going to happen with these characters, what more was going to happen with them. Because I would have loved to see, like, a situation where these two would have to clash. So it would be just like, you know, Ragnar versus Hakumen again. Just through Nu, who was carrying on Ragnar's legacy, and White Justice, who's carrying on Hakumen's legacy. And it helps the fact that these characters, like, both Ragnar and Hakumen, aren't around anymore. Yeah, Hakumen's an Alternative Dark War, and Ragnar's going to get an Alternative Dark War, but they don't know that. They don't know they were going to come back at all. So it would have been a cool way of having these characters have their legacy carried on through Nu and White Justice. I think that would have been sick if we got like a conversation between the two later on in Alternative Dark War if it lasted longer. The last thing I wanted to mention was Babel. It could be assumed they were all prime field devices and they had their own goals and stuff like that. Now, Hearn being the leader obviously has the most, you know, interest around him. People were interested in him the most because when he was first showed off in like the opening to BlazBlue Alternative Dark War, me and a lot of people thought he was just like another like evil Ragnar, right? Everybody kept thinking like, holy shit, it's Ragnar, he's evil now. It made sense. The white hair, the split white and brown hair, the way he looked, people just automatically assumed he was Ragnar. And so fast forward, we finally get artwork by Mori himself, and he revealed that no, Hearn is not Ragnar. Hearn is Toya, who is the main character of the X plays. And like that automatically, again, what I said about Jusan and like White Justice, same thing goes for Toya and Hearn. Like, just seeing Toya of all people, who's a character a lot of people just don't like in X plays. Even for X plays fans, a lot of people just don't like the guy. But seeing him become Hearn is actually insane. That would be an insane story if we had that, if we learned why he became like this. Why half of him looks like Ragnar? Why? You know, that's insane. But we'll never get that. But I think that is such a cool twist because you would have never seen it coming. I would have never seen this coming. Who would have ever seen this coming? How do you get from Toya to Hearn? It's just insane. But anyway, I'm only adding this here because I think that was just something cool that was introduced in Dark War that we just never got to get elaborated upon. It's just sad because, you know, we could have had more of this. And I don't know. I just really want to talk about more of the positives of Alternative Dark War before I fully ended the video because I just felt like it would just only made sense to just say goodbye to Alternative Dark War in a more positive sense than saying, damn it, it's over. I don't want to be that depressed. Being sad constantly is draining, I swear.